This girl had just won a $5 million lottery, only to be crushed to death by someone who jumped off a building. Unwilling to accept her fate, she went to the underworld and threw a massive tantrum. She stretched the underworld guards' tongues into 2-meter-long twists and cried so hard the king of the underworld's palace almost collapsed. The old king had lived for ages, but had never met such a difficult girl. He was at his wits' end and quickly arranged for her to be reincarnated as a princess in her next life, destined to enjoy a life of immense wealth and luxury. The girl was overjoyed and immediately asked, "Will I have a mom and dad? Brothers and sisters? Will everyone love me?" The old king gave an awkward smile and said, "Yes, yes, you'll have everything you want." He just wanted to get this little troublemaker out of his sight. So he threw out the book of fate and yelled, "Unjust soul 99, hurry up and get reincarnated." But when the girl opened her eyes, oh my God, she was in the cold palace. Her brother was locked up in a dark cell. Her mother was powerless to protect herself, and her grandparents had been exiled for treason. Was this some kind of super tragic starter pack? And just 0.01 seconds after becoming a princess, she was forced to disguise herself as a boy and live as a prince. "I hate you, old king of the underworld," Jojo seethed. "Where's the doting family you promised? Where's the wealth and luxury?" Jojo basically shut down, screaming internally, "Just destroy it all. My happy little world is gone." 5 years passed and Juju's life was miserable. Not only was she short on food and clothes, but she had never even seen her so-called father. She figured she'd just muddle through this life, but then she accidentally offended the arrogant Princess Anyang. All because Juju didn't kneel to her. The name Princess Anyang sounded a bit familiar. After thinking for a while, Juju realized she had been placed inside a novel called The 1,000-Year-Old Empress. This Princess Anyang Feng Kaiwei was the main character. Her own deadbeat dad had no daughters, so he raised Feng Kaiwei, a relative in the palace like his own child, even betrothing her to the crown prince. The crown prince was madly in love with her, and when the Western Chu kingdom fell 10 years later, Feng Kaiwei went on to become the empress of the Southern Kingdom, uniting the world with its emperor. A total girl boss protagonist. Meanwhile, Juju was not only an unacknowledged child, but was fated to be beaten to death by her own father on this very day. Classic cannon fodder. Jojo was not about to accept this miserable fate. Seeing Juju remain silent, Feng Kaiwei flew into a rage and raised her hand to scratch the little prince's face. Jojo instinctively blocked the attack and yelled, "What are you doing? Get away from me!" Feng Kaiwei, who had never been treated this way, immediately started playing the victim. She tearfully told the emperor, "Uncle Emperor, that boy stole my things and tried to scratch my face." A classic case of the villain playing the victim first. As Juju stood there stunned, the tyrant emperor had already approached. He was a real piece of work. Without asking any questions, he ordered his men to seize Juju and execute him, then immediately turned to comfort the liar, Feng Kaiwei. "My dear Wei Wei, don't cry. Your face is all tear-streaked like a little kitten." Feng Kaiwei wiped her snot and tears all over the tyrant emperor's robes. Her tyrant father shot Juju a death glare that almost made her wet her diapers. Is this tyrant really going to kill me without even asking what happened? He's my own father. They say even a vicious tiger won't eat its own cubs. The tyrant emperor's expression suddenly darkened. He thought he heard the little brat talking, but strangely his mouth wasn't moving. Could he be hearing his thoughts? The emperor became curious. "Which palace is this boy from? What's his status?" A eunuch replied, "Your Majesty, he is the son of a concubine from the cold palace, the 18th prince." The emperor, who always favored daughters over sons, didn't even blink. He ordered his men to drag him away and beat him to death. Jojo felt incredibly wronged. Feng Kaiwei is just a big liar. I didn't steal her stuff. She was the one who wanted to scratch my face because she was jealous of how cute I am. My tyrant dad is an idiot. No wonder the Western Chu kingdom is going to fall in 10 years. The fate of the nation was at stake. The emperor heard this and immediately lost his cool. "I have questions for him." Jojo was dumbfounded. What's going on? Did my deadbeat dad have a change of heart? Am I not going to die just yet? He turned to Feng Kaiwei and asked what was stolen. The little girl sneakily threw her gold bracelet into the bushes behind her and shouted, "It's over there! He just threw it over there!" Jojo watched her performance and sneered internally. What kind of idiot throws stolen goods right behind her? Her IQ is embarrassing. I bet a certain blind and heartless tyrant won't be able to see through it. Don't talk nonsense, I can hear you, the emperor roared in his mind, his face red with anger. He ordered Feng Kaiwei to tell the truth. Feng Kaiwei's round little face was so scared it turned square. She dropped to her knees and begged for mercy. But the emperor wasn't indulging her this time. He ordered her to be sent to the Grand Empress Dowager to learn some manners. Hearing this, Feng Kaiwei burst into tears. Jojo watched with glee. Did this tyrant have a sudden burst of conscience and get smart all of a sudden? The emperor heard Juju's thoughts and shot him a fierce glare, making Juju's heart tremble. Eek, so scary. Seeing her dear uncle emperor unmoved, Feng Kaiwei begged noble consort Jiang, "Auntie, save me!" Noble consort Jiang was also panicking. Wei Wei was her key to favor. If Wei Wei left, the emperor would stop visiting her palace. She shamelessly pleaded for her niece. "Your Majesty, please forgive Wei Wei just this once." The emperor snapped, scolding noble consort Jiang. "It's all because of your poor discipline. From today on, you are confined to your quarters for reflection." Thinking she was in the clear, Juju tried to sneak away, but was immediately frozen in place by the emperor's death glare. She was so scared her diapers got wet again. Why is the tyrant looking at me with that weird expression? Is he still going to have me beaten to death? I'm so scared, I don't want to die. The emperor leaned in to get a better look at Juju. He was actually quite a cute kid, rosy-cheeked, innocent, and adorable, much better looking than his 17 older brothers. If he were a girl, he'd be so precious. The emperor sighed with regret and had head eunuch Fu An send Juju back. Seeing that the emperor wasn't going to kill her and was even sending someone to escort her, Juju thought he had a little bit of a conscience after all. She couldn't help but ramble in her mind. If this deadbeat dad had been this wise from the start, my poor mother wouldn't have been locked up in the cold palace. But he's not that great either. In a little while, when he walks across the bridge over the lake, it's going to collapse and break his leg. Jojo wanted to warn him, but then she thought, this dad hasn't cared about me or my mom at all. Why should I care about him? He can die for all I care. Soon, eunuch Fuan had escorted Juju back to the cold palace. Still, Juju felt a little guilty. She decided to have the eunuch pass on a warning. When you get to the lake by the imperial garden, wait for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea before crossing the bridge. On his way back to his study, the emperor mulled over Juju's words. That little brat said the Western Chu kingdom will fall in 10 years. I'll listen for now, but not take it too seriously. But he also said my leg would break. That sounds creepily specific. Just then, Fuan returned. Seeing the emperor walking toward the lake, he remembered Juju's words and quickly stopped him. Your Majesty, perhaps we should have a cup of tea before continuing. The emperor understood instantly. That little brat must have said something. At least he had some conscience. The emperor coughed arrogantly and had Fuan serve tea. He wanted to see if this bridge would really collapse. 5 minutes passed and the bridge was still standing. The emperor grew impatient. Humph, it seems what that little brat said isn't necessarily true. At that moment, headmaid Lu from the imperial study came to summon the emperor to handle state affairs. But just as the emperor stood up, a massive boom echoed from behind him. The bridge had collapsed and it was completely shattered. The emperor couldn't imagine the consequences if he had been on it. Just as the brat had said, he would have broken a leg if not died. The court would have been in chaos and the kingdom would have eventually fallen apart. It seems that little brat really has the power to see the future. He's a national treasure. The emperor was so happy he could jump for joy. He immediately had made Lu send the old officials away, keeping only the national master, and then gleefully headed for the cold palace. Juju, the little rascal, had been out wandering all day and was just now slowly returning home. Concubine Li rushed forward and hugged Juju tightly, her face already streaked with tears. After all, the last time Juju's brother went out for a walk, he got into trouble and was thrown in the imperial prison and hasn't been seen since. Now Juju was her only child left. Jojo reached out her chubby little hands and clumsily wiped her mother's tears, smiling innocently. When Jujo grows up, I'll take care of you and give you a good life. As for rescuing Big Brother, the time just isn't right yet. Concubine Li caressed Juju's head, moved. Mommy doesn't care about a good life. I just want you to be safe and sound. Looking at her kind and beautiful mother, Jujo felt even more indignant on her behalf. My deadbeat dad must be blind to have overlooked a woman like my mom. Ever since Juju was born, concubine Lee had been able to hear her thoughts. So the more mature Juju acted, the more her heart ached for her, carrying so many secrets at such a young age. Just then, a servant girl ran in, shouting, "This is bad! The Emperor is here!" Concubine Lee looked as if a great enemy had arrived. After being locked in the cold palace for 5 years, the Emperor had never once visited. Something strange was definitely going on. Her first instinct was to have Juju hide. But Juju comforted her mother. "Don't worry, Mom. Maybe Father is here to take us out of here." Concubine Lee sighed. That was probably just wishful thinking. Just as she thought this, the Tyrant Emperor strode in, his aura overwhelming. The moment he entered, he was stunned by how run down the cold palace was. He muttered to himself, "This is no place for a person to live." Concubine Lee quickly hid Juju behind her and bowed tremblingly. Your servant greets the Emperor. Long live the Emperor." The Emperor smiled at the woman before him. Compared to the gaudily dressed women in the palace, her simple, plain clothes gave her a unique charm. He took the initiative and held Concubine Lee's hand. "No need for formalities, please sit." A whole tea time passed, and the Emperor hadn't said a single word, but his mind was racing. Jo saved my life, so she should be rewarded. But if I tell her I know, and she gets upset and stops giving me predictions, what will I do? Just as Concubine Lee was about to break the awkward silence, the Emperor finally came up with a reason that would both keep Juju on his side and not hurt her feelings. He cleared his throat and said, "Concubine Lee, I plan to reopen the case of your alleged treason. Furthermore, you have done a great service by raising the 18th prince. You may move out of the cold palace." This sudden favor left Concubine Lee stunned and overjoyed. "This servant thanks His Majesty for his grace." Jojo looked at the Emperor and grumbled in her mind. "My deadbeat dad has finally seen the light. Keep it up and maybe I'll even start to like you." The arrogant Emperor scoffed internally. He didn't care about Juju's affection. His coldness made Juju feel even more wronged. Of course he doesn't care if I like him. What was I even thinking? Hearing this, the Emperor suddenly felt a pang of guilt. Just then, Fu An rushed forward. "Your Majesty, they're calling for you from the Imperial study again. They say it's urgent." The Emperor immediately stood up and with a wave of his hand, granted Concubine Lee and Juju the Autumn Water residence, the best location in the palace. He even ordered Fu An to personally help them move. Joju's eyes darted around as if she'd thought of something. My deadbeat dad is going to discuss the war on the front lines. In this next battle, the Western Chu Kingdom is not only going to be utterly defeated, but will also lose 30,000 soldiers. The losses will be devastating. They'll have to give up land and pay reparations. It's going to be a total disaster. Hearing this, the Emperor, who was about to leave, stopped in his tracks. Fu An gently reminded him, "Your Majesty, we're in a hurry." The Emperor shamelessly sat back down. "I'm a bit thirsty. I'll have another cup of tea before I go." He pricked up his ears, desperate to know the reason for the defeat, but Juju just looked confused. Is there something wrong with my deadbeat dad? Why is he looking at me with that weird expression again? "Mommy, I'm sleepy. I want to go to sleep." The Emperor was dumbfounded again. "Your father is facing a national crisis, practically smoking with anxiety, and you little brat, want to go to sleep?" But the Emperor wasn't giving up. Even after Juju fell asleep, he stayed by her side, staring at her intently. To hear Juju's thoughts, the Emperor went to the insane length of not letting her sleep. "You little brat, wake up for me!" Her heartbroken mother risked her life to intervene. "Your Majesty, even if you don't like Juju, you can't torment her like this." The Emperor gave an awkward but polite smile and stubbornly claimed he just wanted to sleep next to Juju. Everyone else in the room gave him a "yeah, right" look. However, the Emperor obediently picked up the drooling Juju and dismissed everyone else. As soon as Juju was asleep, the Emperor started trying to get information out of her. "Juju, our Western Chu is about to lose a battle. What should we do?" She grumbled internally. "It's because that spy from the Southern Kingdom leaked our military plans. Wei Ping faked a pregnancy so she could constantly go to my deadbeat dad's study and steal military intelligence, which led to the defeat. If my dad fed her some fake intelligence for her to steal, Western Chu could turn the tables and win a huge victory against the Southern Kingdom." Her dad felt the sting of Juju's tiny fist. He was so moved he shed a tear. What did I ever do to deserve such a brilliant child? The emperor was in a fantastic mood. He couldn't resist planting a loud "mwah" on Juju's cute little cheek before gleefully leaving. With the big fly gone, Juju could finally get some sleep. The next day, Fuan came as ordered to help Concubine Li and Juju move. Concubine Li asked to bring Nanny Gui with them to the Autumn Water residence. Now that Concubine Li was in the emperor's favor, Fuan naturally agreed to everything. The happiest of all was Juju, because in her 5 years in the cold palace, besides her mother, Nanny Gui had been the kindest to her. The three of them held hands and left the cold palace to start their new life, leaving the other palace maids to watch with envy and jealousy. 7 days later, the emperor in his study received a report of victory from the front lines. He was relieved he had listened to Juju. After fighting the southern kingdom for so many years, this was the first time they had won so decisively. Then, more good news came from the front. The southern kingdom was sending envoys for peace talks. "Your Majesty is brilliant!" The military officials hadn't even finished their flattery before the emperor was eager to head to the Autumn Water residence, only to be stopped by the national master, who said he had something urgent to discuss. The emperor had no choice but to listen. The national master opened his mouth and said, "I am going to die." The emperor was stunned. "Nonsense! That's bad luck! Say something else!" The national master only wanted to give the emperor some final advice. "I have been observing the stars and discovered that the Western Chu kingdom will face a devastating crisis in 10 years. But there is a solution. That person is the 18th prince. No matter what happens, I implore your majesty to always trust the 18th prince and ensure his safety." The emperor took this to heart and nodded. "I will remember." He hesitated for a moment before asking the national master one last question. "Is it true that I am fated to have no daughters?" The national master didn't answer, only saying, "Heaven's secrets must not be revealed." With that, he collapsed and died. The next day, news spread that the national master had passed away. The emperor didn't know if it was a natural death or divine punishment for revealing heavenly secrets. Lost in thought, he made his way to the Autumn Water residence to visit Concubine Li and Juju. "His Majesty the Emperor has arrived." Concubine Li and Juju bowed in greeting. Juju looked up and saw her dad's long face and wondered, "Didn't we just win a battle? Why does my dad look so unhappy? Did something else happen? Oh, right, the national master died." When he heard the words, "The national master died," the emperor's eyes lit up. He grabbed Juju's small shoulders. The national master's death was so sudden. I wonder what the reason was. Juju grumbled to herself. His time was up, obviously. Hearing this, the emperor was as happy as a kid in a candy store. He was so overjoyed that he kissed Juju 99 times. Juju was completely stunned by the kisses. I was just kissed by an old man. Ugh, I'm not pure anymore." After being unexpectedly kissed by her dad, Juju felt like she could just die. The emperor looked at his child with a pained expression for a moment, then decided to just go for it. He held Juju and smothered her with 99 more kisses, leaving her completely bewildered. Concubine Li, however, thought a dazed Juju was incredibly cute and couldn't resist joining the kissing fest. Jojo felt like her face was going numb. A world where only she suffered was now complete. My parents have such a weird way of thinking. They just kiss you whenever they feel like it. But deep down, Juju felt a little spark of happiness. After all, she was an orphan in her past life. Now she could truly feel the love of her parents. When the emperor and concubine Li heard about Juju's past life, their hearts filled with pity. The family of three hugged each other tightly, wanting to give Juju even more love. Juju had performed a great service, and the emperor showered her with countless treasures. But all Juju wanted was to wear pretty little dresses, a request her mother flatly refused. Her mother's position was still weak, her grandparents were still in exile, and her own name had not yet been cleared of treason. Just then, Nanny Gui came to ask what kind of food they should prepare to welcome concubine Qing. Juju immediately became alert. Concubine Qing is on noble consort Jiang and Feng Kaiwei's side. What is she doing here? I remember the book said she always tries to move in with newly favored concubines. And then those concubines all mysteriously end up dead. If she comes to the Autumn Water residence, my mom and I could end up dead too. Concubine Li heard Juju's thoughts and grew pensive. She then told Nanny Gui not to prepare any special food. Nanny Gui was confused as the concubine had just told her to prepare a lavish meal. Concubine Li gently stroked Juju's head, saying she now saw Concubine Qing's true, hypocritical colors. She ignored them when they were in trouble, but came running to suck up now that they were favored. Nanny Gui breathed a sigh of relief, finally able to say what she had been holding back for years. "I'm so glad your ladyship understands now." The next morning, as Concubine Qing set off for the autumn water residence, she confidently promised Feng Kaiwei she would complete her mission, stay at the autumn water residence, and get rid of Concubine Li and her child. Feng Kaiwei nodded in satisfaction, eagerly awaiting the results. In a flash, Concubine Qing arrived at the autumn water residence with a fake smile. "Sister, I've come to see you." Concubine Li didn't even bother to get up, simply saying, "Since you're here, sister, please come in and sit." This attitude truly surprised Concubine Qing. She had expected Concubine Li to hug her and cry. Anxiously, she entered and sat down. When she saw Juju, she smiled and reached out to hold her, scaring Juju so much her diapers nearly got wet. "Mommy, save me." Concubine Li firmly grabbed Concubine Qing's wrist. The child is shy with strangers. She then had someone serve tea. As Concubine Qing drank her tea, she looked around the autumn water residence and said sarcastically, "Your place is so magnificent, sister. Not like my shabby little green jade pavilion." Concubine Li was unfazed and told her to ask the Department of Household Affairs to repair it. Concubine Qing immediately started playing the victim, crying, "Those dogs at the Department of Household Affairs only help those who are favored. They'll never help me." Concubine Li wasn't having it. She casually pointed to her sleeve. "This shoe brocade is fine material. Are you sure they're ignoring you?" Concubine Qing was once again speechless. Finally, she used the excuse that she missed Concubine Li after so many years apart and wanted to move in with her. Concubine Li mercilessly exposed her malicious intentions. Concubine Qing was flustered, made a few clumsy excuses, and tried to leave, hoping Concubine Li would ask her to stay. Instead, Concubine Li immediately told her to leave. Concubine Qing was so angry she could have ground her teeth to dust. With Concubine Qing gone and the crisis averted, Juju was overjoyed. Nanny Gui reported that the 10th and 11th princes were pacing outside, afraid to come in. Concubine Li coldly ordered them to be sent away. Juju was puzzled. Why is Mom so cold to these two brothers? They were the closest to my 13th brother. After he got into trouble, they tried their best to save him, and even lost their own lives in the process. But Mom never liked them, which is why they died full of guilt. Thinking of this, Juju tugged on her mother's sleeve, begging her to let her brothers in. Concubine Li, having heard Juju's thoughts, was shocked. She never knew the 10th and 11th princes were so loyal and righteous. After years in the cold palace, she had learned the value of true friendship and nodded in agreement. When the two princes saw Concubine Li, they quickly bowed and promised to keep trying to find a way to save their 13th brother. Hiding behind her, Juju could see their anxiety and nervousness. They had planned to leave after paying their respects, but were shocked when Concubine Li invited them to sit for tea. This nearly scared the souls out of them, as they were used to being scolded by her. Sensing their panic, Concubine Li took their hands and formally apologized for misjudging them in the past. The sensible 10th prince quickly said, "It was us who were young and foolish, always angering your ladyship. It won't happen again." Seeing that her mother and two brothers had resolved their misunderstanding, Juju swaggered out to meet them. The moment she saw them, she gasped. She instantly became a huge fan of her two handsome older brothers. Juju was ecstatic. The two princes were surprised to find they could hear Juju's thoughts but didn't say anything, worried people might think Juju was a monster. They had to protect her. Brothers hit it off immediately, both of them fighting to hug and kiss the adorable little Juju. Just as things were getting lively, the Tyrant Emperor appeared at the most inopportune moment, shattering the heartwarming scene. He even snatched Juju out of the 10th prince's arms. "10th prince, you look so pale. Did someone upset you? I'll stand up for you." "You're the one misinterpreting the situation, you tyrant. The one who's upsetting me is you," the 10th prince thought miserably. Fighting fire with fire, the 10th prince replied, "Your son just has an upset stomach from something I ate." The emperor immediately scolded him to go see a doctor, and, while he was at it, sent the 11th prince away as well. The two didn't dare disobey and dejectedly left, though their hearts ached to stay with Juju. Jojo saw her brother's reluctance and tugged on her dad's sleeve. "Father, Juju likes my brothers. Brother's stomach hurts because he's hungry. Jujo wants to eat with my brothers. The emperor readily agreed. The 10th and 11th princes were so moved they almost cried. But during the meal they were so nervous they didn't dare touch their chopsticks. Jujo guessed, "My brothers must be scared of my dad. I want to help them win his favor." The two brothers felt a wave of warmth knowing Juju's intentions. However, when Juju looked at her dad, she found him staring intently at her mom, his eyes looking anything but innocent. He looked like a hungry wolf. When Juju's thought came out, everyone almost spat out their food. Only the emperor felt wronged. How am I a wolf for looking at my own wife? Father, eat more, and you won't stare at mommy like a creep. The emperor sighed. Thanks a lot, you little brat. Just then, Fuan reported that the emperor's favorite, Princess Anyang, was kneeling outside begging for forgiveness. The emperor was unmoved. If she wants to kneel, let her. Suddenly, it started to rain. Princess Anyang remained kneeling, her small body trembling and crying pitifully. Onlookers felt sorry for her. When Duke Duan and his wife heard their daughter had been kneeling in the palace for so long, they rushed in to persuade her to get up. But Feng Kaiwei seemed glued to the ground, saying she wouldn't get up until her uncle emperor forgave her. Her words were full of arrogance and threat, terrified of losing her favor and wealth. A eunuch rushed to report to the emperor that Duke Duan and his wife wanted to take the royal family's only girl, Feng Kaiwei, home. The emperor's face darkened, but he said nothing, his mind whirring. It was Juju who muttered to herself, "It's obviously that bratty princess's own fault. Dad already sent someone to tell her to go back. Duke Duan and his wife are so clueless. Are they trying to manipulate the emperor?" The emperor glanced at Juju and gave a meaningful smile. "Hey, you little brat. You really understand me." After a moment's thought, the emperor ordered the duke's family of 3 to be sent out of the palace, and from now on, they were not to enter without a summons. It was a display of pure imperial authority, enough for the emperor to feel smug in front of Juju for a lifetime. Meanwhile, a eunuch swiftly ran out and announced the emperor's order in a high-pitched voice. "Send the duke's family out of the palace." The group kneeling in the rain was instantly panicked. They never expected their little drama to fail so spectacularly. Feng Taiwei did not want to leave the palace. Once she left, she would no longer be the high and mighty princess. She gritted her teeth and slammed her head against a nearby water basin used for growing lotuses, fainting on the spot. The eunuch ran back to report to the emperor. The emperor was furious. Who cares about someone else's daughter? I have my own princess. His eyes fell on Juju with a strange, almost creepy smile that nearly scared her out of her wits. He was holding a beautiful pale yellow dress, chasing Juju all over the place. "Juju, isn't this dress so pretty? Don't you want to wear it?" "I don't want to. I don't want to." Seeing Juju's strong resistance, the emperor played his trump card. "Juju, if you agree to wear this dress, I'll reward you with 500 taels of silver." The emperor's antics left the eunuchs and nannies completely dumbfounded. Nanny Gui was worried Juju would throw a fit, but instead, Juju reached out her chubby little hand and snatched the dress. Thinking about that shiny silver, she figured, who would say no to money? She immediately agreed to wear it. Juju took the dress from her tyrant dad and skipped into her room, having Nanny Gui help her put it on, and even style her hair into 2 cute buns. When the dressed-up Juju pushed the door open, the emperor turned around and was so moved he almost cried. The little prince had instantly transformed into an adorable little princess, so fair and cute you just wanted to kiss her. And the emperor did not disappoint. He immediately swept her up in a hug, planted a big kiss on her cheek, and declared he would get her even more pretty dresses. As long as Juju was willing, she could name her price. "I don't have any conditions. I really like dressing like this," she thought, wishing she could wear dresses all the time. The emperor was overjoyed to hear this and lifted Juju into the air, spinning her around and around. At the same time, rumors about the 18th prince dressing as a girl spread throughout the palace. Even her 2 older brothers were worried about their little brother's fragile heart and wanted to stand up for him, only to be turned down by Juju, who insisted that she was very happy to be able to wear a dress. Just then, Juju remembered something important was going to happen the next day and told her 2 brothers to come find her then. The next day, the 3 little ones were sneakily hiding outside the elephant stables. Today is the day the crown prince almost gets trampled to death by an elephant in heat. In the book, Feng Kaiwei cleverly saves him, and because of that, the crown prince falls for her at first sight and becomes devoted to her. But Feng Kaiwei doesn't love him at all. Jojo didn't know that her two brothers had heard her thoughts. She asked them in a soft voice, "If someone was hurt by an elephant, would you save them?" They both nodded. Of course. Just then, the crown prince's procession arrived and everyone stopped chatting to greet him. He was there to inspect the elephants to ensure everything was perfect for an upcoming ceremony, to bring honor to the Western Chu kingdom. But as he inspected the last elephant, the crown prince noticed something was wrong. The elephant tamer quickly warned him to stay back. "This elephant is in heat and is very agitated." The words were barely out of his mouth when the elephant snapped its reins and charged straight for the crown prince. The crown prince was skilled in martial arts, but he couldn't defend against such a sudden attack and was thrown to the ground. The elephant wasn't done and was about to crush him with its foot. The 10th prince reacted quickly, using the elephant's favorite food, a large banana, to lure it away. The 11th prince coordinated with him, rushing forward to save the crown prince. Jojo hid in a corner, silently cheering for her brothers. But the elephant seemed to realize it had been tricked and charged at the crown prince again. The 11th prince, trying to protect the crown prince, was viciously whipped by the elephant's trunk. His back must have been in agony. As he drifted in and out of consciousness, the crown prince learned that his 11th brother had risked his life to save him. In the end, the 10th prince managed to trap the elephant in a large iron cage. The crown prince was saved, and Juju, hiding in the corner, finally breathed a sigh of relief. But she was puzzled. If he's this formidable, how did Feng Kaiwei save the crown prince in the book? She couldn't figure it out. Then she saw Feng Kaiwei hiding in a corner not far away. Wasn't she supposed to be here to get close to the crown prince? She was just watching from the sidelines. Someone who would just stand by and watch someone die doesn't deserve the crown prince's love at all. The one who's truly worthy of him is Miss Yu Wanying from the Yu family, the one who never married for his sake, who disguised herself as a man to fight on the battlefield, and who was captured and tortured by the enemy to save him but never betrayed her country. I have to help the crown prince find his true love. But first, she had to check on her brothers, especially the 11th prince who had been hit by the elephant's trunk. She went to check his injury and touched his back, only to pull her hand away covered in red juice. Never knowing she was afraid of blood, Jujo fainted on the spot. Meanwhile, the crown prince was taken back to the Eastern Palace. The imperial physician diagnosed him with no major injuries. When the crown prince slowly woke up, the emperor was overjoyed. He had almost failed the crown prince's deceased mother. The crown prince suddenly remembered his injured 11th brother and anxiously asked about his condition. The emperor was surprised to hear this, because the version he had heard was that Princess Anyang bravely saved the crown prince. The kneeling servants had clearly been bribed by Feng Kaiwei and insisted that the crown prince was mistaken and that Princess Anyang was the true hero. Even though the crown prince vehemently denied it, the head eunuch persisted, claiming it was Princess Anyang and even asking for a reward for her. The emperor was furious and had the audacious servants dragged out and beheaded. They want a reward before the truth is even clear? Something's fishy here. Suddenly, Eunuch Fu An rushed in. "Your Majesty, this is bad! Something's happened at the Autumn Water residence. The 18th princess has fainted." The emperor's face immediately fell. Back at the Autumn Water residence, the imperial physician had already bandaged the 11th prince's wound, and concubine Li was carefully taking notes. When the emperor arrived, his first concern was whether his precious Juju was hurt. The faint-hearted Juju had woken up long ago. She was fine, but her heroic brothers, the 10th and 11th princes, were injured. Hearing Juju's thoughts, the emperor understood everything. From then on, he allowed the 10th and 11th princes to spend more time with the crown prince and help him with his duties. Seeing her dad's relationship with her brothers improve, Juju was so happy she almost jumped for joy. But she couldn't help but curse inwardly. "My dog of a dad is blind. He can't see how evil that Feng Kaiwei is." The emperor learned of Juju's thoughts and was heartbroken. Does he really see me as such a foolish ruler? Feng Kaiwei was certain that her heroic act of saving the crown prince would win her back the emperor's favor, and she even started dreaming of the crown prince falling madly in love with her. Little did she know what awaited her was an imperial edict that would knock her right back down to earth. Princess Anyang falsely claimed credit for a heroic deed, a crime of deceiving the monarch, which is punishable by death. However, in consideration of her years of companionship, the death penalty is waived, but she cannot escape punishment. Her title of Princess Anyang is hereby revoked, the betrothal is cancelled, and she is to be expelled from the palace. Feng Kaiwei was instantly stunned. The crown prince was on his way to the Autumn Water residence to thank his 3 younger siblings for saving his life. The courtyard of the Autumn Water residence was bustling with activity, with the 2 brothers chasing Juju, begging for kisses. No way, no way! Little Juju was exhausted. Her face was practically numb from all the kisses. After finally escaping her brother's affectionate pursuit, she ran headfirst into the crown prince's knee. Juju's adorable appearance instantly charmed the crown prince, and his handsome face in turn captivated her. She couldn't help but sigh internally. The crown prince is so handsome. The crown prince was shocked. Juju's little mouth hadn't moved, but he had heard her voice. The innocent-looking Juju asked, "What's wrong, crown prince?" After confirming it was Juju's thoughts he had heard, the crown prince tried to calm himself, silently chanting, "What exists is reasonable." Jojo in a dress was just too cute. The crown prince couldn't resist wanting a hug. 18th brother, let your big brother hug you. No hugs. You're injured, crown prince. After a pause, she added, "Besides, I'm not the 18th brother. I'm the 18th sister." Whoa! Out of the mouths of babes, the crown prince quickly covered Juju's mouth. "It's all father's fault for making my perfectly fine brother dress as a girl. Now he's confused about his own gender." The crown prince earnestly tried to brainwash Juju. 18th brother, you must remember you are a proud and proper boy." Juju felt wronged. "Nobody believes me when I tell the truth these days." Afterward, the crown prince thanked his brothers for saving his life and even swore an oath to the heavens. "In the future, I will protect you with my life. If I break this vow, may I be struck by lightning." At this moment, Juju thought of how such a noble crown prince was dragged down by the wicked Feng Kaiwei in the book, never marrying the Yu family's young lady who loved him so deeply. It was such a pity. Hearing this, the crown prince was so shocked his jaw nearly hit the floor. The other 2, who were also listening in, had the same shocked expression. At noon, the emperor came to the Autumn Water residence for a free meal just to see the adorable Juju. He also informed concubine Li that the Grand Empress Dowager, the Empress, and concubine Shu would be returning to the palace tomorrow. Jojo was stunned. Concubine Shu? My dad's favorite concubine? She's the one who framed my mom for treason. The villain is about to make her entrance. I wonder if my dad will punish her. Juju's big, beautiful eyes widened as she stared at her dad. Her dad, feeling guilty, quickly changed the subject. "Juju, is the food not to your liking?" Thinking about how her mother and brother's names hadn't been cleared yet, Juju's heart ached. The braised pork in front of her suddenly lost its appeal. Seeing Juju on the verge of tears, her dad immediately offered to take her to the Imperial Garden to catch butterflies. Hearing this, Juju was so happy she almost jumped for joy. Her dad patted her head dotingly, thinking to himself that she was, after all, just a 5-year-old kid. The father and daughter arrived at the Imperial Garden. Juju ran ahead while her dad chased after her, a picture of harmony and warmth. But the harmony lasted all of 1 second. In a corner of the garden, 2 reckless palace servants were gossiping, saying that once the Grand Empress Dowager returned, she would surely send concubine Li and the 18th prince back to the cold palace, and with concubine Shu back, the emperor would naturally forget all about them. Now Juju was in no mood to play with her dad. She turned around and walked away without looking back. Her dumbfounded dad was dumbfounded again. The child he had just managed to cheer up had abandoned him just like that. In a fit of anger, the emperor ordered the 2 gossiping servants to be dragged out, their tongues cut off and fed to the dogs, and then beaten to death. The next morning, the emperor led the entire world to welcome the Grand Empress Dowager back to the palace. Because of the gossip in the garden yesterday, Juju's heart was pounding, afraid her imperial grandmother wouldn't like her and her mom. Concubine Li quickly reassured her, saying the Grand Empress Dowager was very kind and had been the one who saved her life back then against all odds. The emperor turned and saw Juju's anxious face and also comforted her. "Juju is so cute. Your imperial grandmother will definitely love you when she sees you." That's great! Juju was so happy she almost jumped for joy. Just then, the Grand Empress Dowager, along with the Empress and concubine Shu, arrived in a grand procession. Jojo panicked. The Grand Empress Dowager's face was dark, and she didn't look very happy. It seems a lot has happened while I was away from the palace. The Emperor heard this and quickly stepped forward to chat with his mother, not forgetting to introduce the adorable Juju. I'm the one who had Juju dress as a girl. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Concubine Li and Juju are innocent. The Grand Empress Dowager glanced at Juju. Jojo was so scared her diapers nearly got wet. This imperial grandmother is so fierce, I'm scared. The Grand Empress Dowager frowned. Am I really that scary? The next second she was so shocked her dentures almost flew out as she realized she could hear Juju's thoughts. She tried to compose herself and gave an awkward smile. She wasn't planning on blaming anyone. She just wanted to cuddle the cute child. Then, the Grand Empress Dowager smiled, squatted down, and reached out her hands to hug the soft and cute little Juju. Jojo cautiously reached back. The adorable little Juju instantly captured the Grand Empress Dowager's heart. With her sharp eyes, she could tell at a glance that Juju was a beautiful little princess. She was overjoyed holding Juju and immediately gifted her 2 large gold bracelets. The little money lover's eyes sparkled. She declared that her imperial grandmother was her favorite person ever. The last time she had that expression was when the emperor had given her 500 tiles of silver. The emperor was officially dethroned. Juju wanted to call her dad to catch up, but saw that the wicked concubine Shu had already latched onto him, looking at him with eyes full of longing. But the emperor's attitude was cold. He replied, "The family banquet is ready. Concubine Shu, you should join us." Then he eagerly rushed forward, wanting to snatch his beloved Juju back from his mother. With her grandmother's backing, Juju boldly stuck her tongue out at her dad. At the banquet, the Grand Empress Dowager held Juju and wouldn't let go, personally feeding her all sorts of delicious food. The emperor was so jealous he could scream, and could only ask from time to time, "Mother, aren't your arms tired from holding Juju?" The Grand Empress Dowager rolled her eyes a full 360 degrees. "Emperor, you've asked that question 10,086 times tonight. I'm not tired." While the emperor was feeling sorry for himself, concubine Shu started her act again. She toasted him and leaned against him, her words hinting that she hoped he would choose her for the night. Seeing this, Juju grumbled internally, "She's such a villain. I hate her. My dad would never go to her place. When is he going to clear my mom's name? It was all concubine Shu who framed my mom." After hearing Juju's thoughts, the emperor fell into deep thought. Maybe he really should investigate concubine Shu for framing concubine Li. To avoid alerting her, the emperor took concubine Shu's drink and downed it. But concubine Shu seemed to sense something was off. She didn't press the issue and instead invited him to her palace for some sobering soup, saying she would go back and wait for him. Concubine Shu happily changed into a beautiful, skimpy garment and eagerly awaited the emperor's arrival. But to her surprise, a maid rushed in to report that the emperor had gone to the Autumn Water residence with a load of gifts. Concubine Shu was instantly furious and started cursing. "That bitch concubine Li! What kind of spell did she use to bewitch the emperor? I refuse to accept this." Losing favor on her first day back, and the culprit was the person she hated most, concubine Li. Concubine Shu smashed her teacup. Who does concubine Li think she is? She was so angry she could have ground her teeth to dust, hating that the treason charge hadn't finished her off last time. The emperor, wanting to confirm his suspicions, went to concubine Shu's palace. As he reached the entrance, he heard her smashing things and ranting, saying things that left him in disbelief. The emperor clenched his fists, suppressing his rage, and continued to listen as concubine Shu incriminated herself. Now everything was clear. The emperor signaled Fuan to open the door. As the door opened, he saw concubine Shu still lost in her tirade against concubine Li. A kneeling maid saw the emperor and his entourage and tried to signal her mistress. But concubine Shu didn't get it and even scolded the maid. "You dead girl, what are you winking for? I'm not the emperor, you can't seduce me." The maid whispered, "The emperor is here." The emperor stood behind concubine Shu, his face dark, his presence suffocating. Concubine Shu was already gasping for breath, her face pale with panic. She knelt and stammered, Your servant greets greets the emperor. "Your Majesty, when did you arrive?" She was terrified, desperate to know if the emperor had heard her. If he had, she was finished. The emperor remained silent, just glaring at her. As concubine Shu tried to stand, the emperor kicked her in the shoulder, saying he never hit women, but she was so disgusting he had to make an exception. Concubine Shu burst into tears and tried her damsel in distress act, claiming she only said those things out of jealousy because she loved him so much. But the emperor wasn't buying it. He threw her aside and announced to the entire palace, "Concubine Shu has been stripped of her title and sent to the cold palace for framing another concubine." The charge of treason against concubine Li was baseless. Today, her name is cleared, and she is declared innocent. As for the 13th prince, he would have to find the right time to release him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to silence the court officials. Meanwhile, concubine Li and Juju were getting ready for bed, when a stream of rewards began pouring into their palace. They were both astonished. Concubine Li had no idea what had gotten into the emperor to suddenly bestow so many treasures. The little money lover Juju's eyes sparkled at the sight of the treasures. After the eunuchs had delivered all the gifts, the emperor appeared. He looked at concubine Li with a hint of guilt and said, "Concubine Li, you have suffered all these years. I personally heard concubine Shu admit that she was the one who framed you. I should have investigated properly back then and not been so quick to send you to the cold palace." Not only did the emperor clear the names of Juju and her mother, but he also came to apologize in person. The mighty emperor bowing to a woman made Juju suspicious. Did my deadbeat dad suddenly fall for my mom? The emperor heard Juju's thoughts and sighed to himself, "You little rascal." Concubine Li shook her head, thinking, "This silly child, what does she know about love? Emperors don't have time for love." She then asked the emperor to go back to his own quarters to sleep. But the emperor wanted to stay at the Autumn Water residence, only to be politely rejected by concubine Li. The emperor's face fell like a sad puppy's. "All right then, I'll wait until you're ready. I'll go back to sleep." "Juju, you're coming with me." He then picked up Juju and strode out with an air of undeniable authority. Concubine Li was left completely stunned. Juju cursed internally. "My dad is so despicable. He can't have my mom, so he's taking me hostage." Juju, at such a young age, was carrying so much. She felt wronged, while the daughter-obsessed emperor was amused by her interesting thoughts. One day, Juju woke up, rubbing her sleepy eyes. The emperor announced he was taking her to the morning court session. Juju's heart skipped a beat. She thought she was hallucinating. The next thing she knew, the emperor had lifted her out of bed and was marching her to court. He couldn't wait to tell everyone he had a precious daughter. His daughter was the cutest, most adorable daughter in the world. When the court officials saw the fairy-like Juju, they all started showering her with compliments. Looks really were everything. The court was peaceful until a prisoner in chains was brought in. It was General Zhou Ye. The Western Chu has repeatedly lost battles against the Southern Kingdom. An incompetent general has cost the lives of 3 armies. "What is your crime?" the emperor thundered, intending to execute the general. Juju didn't want to see General Zhou die. After all, he was a brilliant general. His failures weren't his fault. It was because of the spy Wei Ping's interference and because he had been cursed and was being controlled by someone. General Zhou was a tragic figure. His 3 sons and 1 daughter had all died on the battlefield. When his wife was captured by the enemy, to save her from dishonor, he had personally shot her with an arrow. Hearing Juju's thoughts, the emperor fell silent. He had known none of this. If Juju hadn't reminded him, he would have been in the dark forever. The emperor's face grew dark, but the officials thought he was angry at Zhou Ye for his repeated losses and treasonous intent. So they all advised the emperor to kill him. General Zhou was quickly pushed into the spotlight. Jojo fumed internally. These court officials are a bunch of jerks. Instead of helping my dad, they're egging him on to kill people. If General Zhou dies, it will break the hearts of all the military men in the kingdom, and the fall of Western Chu will be just around the corner. I really hope my dad has a clear head and understands General Zhou's loyalty and importance, and doesn't kill him. Hearing Juju's thoughts, the emperor's mind was clear. He patted Juju's little knee, indicating he would handle it. He then ordered the prime minister and the head of the Grand Court of Revision to thoroughly investigate the reasons for Zhou Yi's defeat, and sent the head of the imperial hospital to treat him. But when Juju heard it was the head of the Imperial Hospital, she was unimpressed. That guy is a total hack. He only knows about women's health. He knows nothing about curses. The Emperor took a deep breath and added, "Send the deputy head. The head still needs to look after the concubines in the harem." At this moment, Juju realized her dad was finally on the same page as her. She was so happy her eyes filled with adoration. In the end, she couldn't resist and gave her dad a big smooch on the cheek. Juju wasn't just the Emperor's lucky star, she was the savior of the entire Western Chu kingdom. Relying on her thoughts, the Emperor successfully rooted out another spy. In the Imperial study, the Emperor was overjoyed. General Zhou had been saved. Juju was also delighted, happily perched on the Emperor's shoulder. Over the past few days, Juju had deeply felt the Emperor's doting love, and she had grown bold enough to climb onto his head and playfully tie his hair into bows. It had to be said, Juju was quite good at tying bows. The underworld guards before, and now the Emperor, had all fallen victim to her handiwork. Fu An, standing by, quickly tried to intervene. 18th Princess, this is damaging to the Emperor's dignity. But the Emperor loved it. No child had ever been so close to him before, and it made him feel the simple joy of being a father. After playing for a while, Juju suddenly remembered something and wondered, why did General Zhou suffer so much yet no one knew about it? Logically, with something this big, even if the general didn't say anything, my dad should have known something, right? Did someone intentionally block the news from reaching my dad's ears, hoping to use my dad's hand to quietly get rid of this great hero? Hearing this, the Emperor had a realization and became alert. Juju, you go back to your mother's place for now. Father will go investigate this, and I'll come see you when I'm done. Jojo exclaimed, Father is mighty and powerful. Afterward, the Emperor secretly went to the general's residence. He needed to hear the situation from Zhou Ye himself. Zhou Ye hesitated. Your Majesty, you might not believe me if I tell you. It might be better not to say anything. Whether I believe it or not is up to me. Speak. Only then did Zhou Ye speak. It was Tian Wengxin. He was the one who intercepted all reports about my family and military matters. Last year, during the war with the Southern Kingdom, our supplies were tampered with several times because of him. I suspect he is a spy for the Southern Kingdom. Another spy. The Emperor was enraged. Zhou Ye thought his reaction meant he didn't believe him, since Tian Wengxin was seen by everyone as a loyal and dedicated official. Zhou Ye knelt and swore to find evidence to prove he was a spy. General Zhou, just rest and recover. I will find out the truth. Afterward, the Emperor returned to the palace and sent out his secret agents to investigate. The agents did not disappoint, finding many secret letters between Tian Wengxin and the Southern Kingdom in his home. After reading them one by one, the Emperor's hands trembled with fear. What a man, Tian Wengxin. He looked so loyal, but in reality, he had practically sold the entire Western Chu kingdom. The silver mine lost to the Southern Kingdom 2 years ago, the death of General Wen and 3,000 war horses last year, the burning of the grain supply at the beginning of this year, and the near death of General Zhou. Tian Wengxin was behind it all. With Wei Ping in the harem and Tian Wengxin in the court, how could Western Chu not fall? The fact that it had survived for 10 years was a mercy from the heavens. Thinking of this, the Emperor was furious. He ordered Tian Wengxin's entire family to be executed, and his head, along with Wei Ping's, to be hung on the city gates as a warning to all. Juju is truly a great blessing for the entire Western Chu. If it weren't for her, the kingdom would have been sold, and I'd still be helping them count the money. The Emperor calmed himself and asked Fu An, Where is Juju now? Reporting to your Majesty, the 18th Princess is with the Crown Prince. The Southern Kingdom's envoys will be arriving soon for peace talks, and the Crown Prince is in charge of receiving them. The Princess is there to join in the fun. At this moment, Juju was being held by the Crown Prince as they studied a guide, 108 Ways to Deal with Foreign Envoys. The densely packed words were making Juju sleepy. Zhao light some refreshing incense. At the Crown Prince's call, Juju was instantly awake. Zhao? She's here with the Crown Prince? Why am I reacting so strongly? Is this Zhao a spy too? The Crown Prince never imagined that his personal maid could be a spy from the Southern Kingdom. She has such an innocent face, but she's a total snake. In the original story, when Western Chu was defeated, they received the Southern Kingdom's envoys. Zhao colluded with them, poisoned an envoy to fake his death, and blackmailed Western Chu out of 5 cities. Even though Western Shu won this time, Jower will definitely still try to poison someone to frame us. Then this victory would be for nothing. No way! I can't let them get away with just giving up land and money. Thinking of this, Jujo was fuming. The crown prince panicked when he learned of the plot. It was a 1,000-year-old rule that you don't kill envoys during wartime. If what Juju said was true, not only would their victory be pointless, but he might lose his position as crown prince. Worried that Jower might have tampered with the incense, he sent her away. But he couldn't alert her, so he couldn't get rid of her just yet. To stop the Southern Kingdom's plot, the crown prince racked his brain for a solution, and actually thought of drinking the poison himself. His intelligence was truly touching. The thought of dying without an antidote, without having achieved anything, without getting married and having children, and without even meeting the Miss Juju mentioned, filled him with regret. Just then, Juju's thoughts provided a much better solution. If we secretly get the antidote from the envoy, we can expose their scheme. Western Shu can turn the tables and maybe even make them give up more land and money. Juju was delighted with her own cleverness, while the crown prince was nearly brought to tears by his own stupidity. Juju is so smart! She's my savior! Thinking this, he planted several kisses on Juju's little cheek. Juju's face went numb. What's wrong with the crown prince? My poor cheeks are suffering again. Worried the crown prince wouldn't be able to handle the poisoned envoy situation, Juju came up with her own plan. Although she was an orphan in her past life, she had learned traditional medicine from the director of her orphanage. If the crown prince couldn't find the antidote, she could create a universal one for him. As she was mixing a bunch of precious medicinal herbs in the courtyard, the emperor silently appeared behind her. He looked worried. Is someone sick? Concubine Li told him no one was sick. Juju just suddenly wanted to play with these things. The emperor immediately ordered, "Tell the imperial hospital to send whatever herbs the princess needs. We must make sure the princess has fun." He then went to Juju's side and asked dotingly, "Juju, do you need father's help?" "Yes." Juju held up the pestle. "This is too heavy. You can do it, father." The emperor rolled up his sleeves without a second thought. Fuan quickly tried to stop him. "Your Majesty, your esteemed self. Let this old servant do it." But before he could finish, the emperor was already grinding the herbs with incredible speed. Juju exclaimed in awe, "Wow, father, you're amazing!" With the father-daughter duo's combined effort, the universal antidote was finally complete. Juju was so happy she jumped for joy. Looking at the medicine in her hand, she thought, "I, the princess, will slay all the villains in the world." Slay, slay, slay. The emperor picked her up. "All right, my princess, it's time to eat." He carried her to the dining table, set her down, and said, "Princess, please be seated." Those words sounded familiar. In her past life, she had heard, "Princess, please get in the car. Princess, please have some water. Princess, please go to sleep." And so many others, but no one had ever said them to her. In this life, someone was finally treating her like a real princess. Juju contentedly gave the emperor a kiss, and he grinned like a fool. Juju kissed me on her own initiative. He became even more enthusiastic, bustling around her. "Princess, please take your chopsticks. Princess, please hold your bowl. Princess, please open your mouth." And Juju got lost in the chorus of "Princess." Concubine Li watched the loving scene between father and daughter and couldn't help but smile. With the family so happy and harmonious, who in the harem would be the next to get jealous? On this day, the envoys from the Southern Kingdom arrived for an audience, and a grand banquet was prepared in the palace. The emperor, ignoring all objections, brought Juju with him. The Southern Kingdom's envoy came forward to state his purpose, claiming they came for peace talks and, as a sign of sincerity, wanted to toast the emperor. But the emperor raised his teacup and responded authoritatively, "I have a precious daughter now. My daughter doesn't like the smell of alcohol, so I will use tea instead of wine." This move not only showed off the happiness of having a daughter, but also gave the Southern Kingdom a firm slap in the face. However, in the midst of this tense atmosphere, an accident occurred. The lead envoy suddenly collapsed, his lips turning black and black blood flowing from his mouth, a clear sign of poisoning. The Southern Kingdom's envoys erupted in chaos, accusing Western Chu of poisoning their envoy and threatening to seek justice from the Supreme Alliance. The emperor panicked and questioned the crown prince, "What is going on?" But the crown prince was confident and told the emperor not to worry, he would handle it. Joju, with her keen eye, saw something clutched in the crown prince's hand and his confident reaction, and guessed that he must have found the antidote and was ready to expose their staged drama. The emperor understood after hearing Juju's thoughts. The other royal family members who were hearing Juju's thoughts for the first time were all completely stunned. The crown prince looked at the troublemaking envoys. "We people of Western Chu are gracious in both victory and defeat. We would never resort to poison. If you wish to ask the Supreme Alliance for justice, then by all means do so." Soon, people from the Supreme Alliance arrived. The Southern Kingdom's envoys' eyes lit up, and they rushed forward, crying, "Sir, you must bring us justice. The Western Chu royal family has no honor. They poisoned our master." The chief official of the Supreme Alliance, Liu Jing, confirmed that the envoy was poisoned and looked at the emperor. "The culprit must be from your Western Chu royal family. Do you have anything to say?" The Southern Kingdom's envoys chimed in, demanding they pay a heavy price. "A price?" the crown prince sneered. "What price?" The Southern Kingdom's envoys were arrogant, demanding not only to cancel the land and reparation payments, but also for the emperor to make a public apology. Liu Jing found this to be a reasonable solution and told the emperor to agree. The emperor laughed in disbelief. He stood up, holding Juju. "Forcing me to watch you people of the South poison yourselves to frame my Western Chu? All because you lost a war and don't want to pay up? That's right, that's right." Juju chirped in support of her tyrant dad. The Southern Kingdom's envoys felt their scalps tingle. "Do you have any proof?" "Yes." The crown prince revealed the antidote he had been clutching in his hand. "I found the antidote to the poison in the Southern Kingdom's envoys' quarters." The envoy insisted the bottle and the antidote weren't theirs. The crown prince had anticipated they wouldn't admit it easily and had the imperial physician examine it. The physician, with his 80 years of experience, sniffed it and immediately identified it as the antidote to a poison called red thorn. This poison was exclusive to the Southern Kingdom's royal family. No one else could create it, let alone its antidote. The crown prince decisively handed the medicine to Liu Jing from the alliance. Liu Jing personally administered it to the poisoned envoy, and the antidote worked instantly. The envoy woke up in less than a second. Liu Jing was amazed. "It really is the antidote." He turned to the envoys and sternly questioned, "Envoys of the South, do you admit to the crime of falsely accusing Western Chu?" The envoys were speechless and all fell to their knees, begging for mercy. Due to the Southern Kingdom's shameless act of framing them, the original reparations of land and money were now doubled. With the matter successfully resolved, Juju couldn't help but give the crown prince a thumbs up. "Crown prince, that was beautifully done.